Welcome to the Sharma show. Today on the show, we're going to talk about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's 6-day visit to India and what that means. And there are some people and some organizations that are having a lot of indigestion over this trip, and that makes me happy. So we're going to talk about that. My name's Sham Sharma. Welcome to the Sharma show. Hello, and welcome. Welcome to the Monday edition of the Sham Sharma show. Thank you very much for joining me at the beginning of the week. I appreciate you. All right, so Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is on a 6-day visit to India starting Sunday. And just like when Modi visited Israel earlier last year, Modi this time broke protocol and actually went to the airport and greeted Netanyahu at the airport. So this trip by Mr. Netanyahu is being seen as a culmination of the silver jubilee year of the formalization of the India-Israel relationship. So what's on the table at this trip? So the first thing that they did is the renaming of the Teen Murti Chowk as the Teen Murti Haifa Chowk, because the chowk actually commemorates the 44 soldiers who laid down their lives defending Haifa in the First World War. After that, they're also going to do a joint roadshow in Gujarat to sort of highlight the elevation of the relationship between India and Israel. They will also attend the second India-Israel CEO forum on January 15th. And finally, very interestingly, they're actually going to be in Mumbai and they're going to be at this event called Shalom Bollywood. Now, Shalom Bollywood is when Israeli Prime Minister is going to meet some eminent personalities and eminent people from Bollywood and actually encourage them to come and film their movies in Israel, which I think is a great idea. And there's so much scope, for the India-Israel partnership to grow, not just in terms of politics, but in terms of trade as well, particularly when it comes to, of course, defense, agriculture and food, renewable energy, just to name a few. So we know last year, Narendra Modi became the first ever Prime Minister of India to go and visit Israel. The countries then signed a $40 million agreement on industrial development and partnership in water and agriculture. India also signed a deal with Israel to develop a joint missile defense system worth $2.6 billion. They also created the India-Israel Innovation Fund, and both countries pledged to add about $4 million every year for 5 years to that fund. And also, India is also Israel's biggest arms market, and India buys about $1 billion worth of weapons from Israel every year. Bilateral trade between the two countries has grown from about 200 million in 1992 to just over 4 billion in 2016. Now, even though trade has grown up by such an amount, it's still very small as compared to, the trade that both of these countries have with their respective partners, whether it be the United States, whether it be Europe, or whether it be the Middle East for India. So again, like I said, there's a giant possibility and giant scope for these two countries to expand and to move forward in terms of trade, in terms of politics and the like. And I'm happy that India is finally not treating their relationship with Israel like some kind of secret affair, and they're actually out in the open with its relationship and treating Israel like the key ally that it is. Now, of course, not everybody is quite pleased with this trip by PM Netanyahu to India. There are some people who are upset about this as well. And, hating Israel, and just like hating Hindus, is a very fashionable thing to do. And it's a great way to gain instant credibility in intellectual circles around the world. So, of course, the Congress Party being one of them, the Congress Party recently posted a video as soon as PM Netanyahu landed in India about PM Modi's huglomacy and that how he hugs people and how that's really strange. So, of course, they're not very pleased with this trip.
Jalina.
But then look, hey, say whatever you want about PM Modi hugging people and hugging different leaders, and that might be weird for you. But you have to agree with the fact that PM Modi has been able to build a very public and a very strong relationship with Israel while maintaining and while not endangering India's relationship with its partners in the Middle East. That's a very fine line, and that's a very tight rope to walk, and PM Modi has actually been able to do that really well. And I don't think any other leader in the past has been able to walk that line as well as Mr. Modi has been able to walk that. So say whatever about the hugs, but that huglomacy seems to be working. Another organization that's very unhappy with this visit is, of course, the anti-Israel and the anti-India kind of media. For example, Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is famous for being anti-India and anti-Israel. So Al Jazeera was covering Mr. Netanyahu's trip, and instead of talking to an actual foreign policy expert about this trip, they actually went ahead and decided to talk to this organization called Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions. This is a Palestinian-led group and a deeply anti-Israel and a deeply anti-Semitic group, and of course has a decent following in India as well, as you would expect, from the left crowd. So Al Jazeera actually spoke to one of its members, and that member said, this Indian government is driven by the exclusivist ideology of Hindutva, which has striking similarities with the exclusivist Zionist ideology the Israeli state is based on.
Jalina, teri bhi jalina.
Of course, not very happy about it. And here's a general rule of thumb. If you're doing something that's really upsetting Al Jazeera, you're probably doing the right thing. Now, of course, like I said before, the relationship between India and Israel has really evolved quite a lot under Prime Minister Modi. And when India gained independence in 1947, they were part of the non-alignment movement under Jawaharlal Nehru, and that whole movement was quite anti-Israel in general. Now, Modi has attempted to move away from that movement and chart his own course with Israel. Now, a recent flashpoint that happened was that India actually voted against the US in a resolution where the US decided to recognize Jerusalem as the new capital for Israel. But it's important to remember that back in 2015, India actually abstained for a UN Human Rights Commission vote against Israel. And also recently India hosted Mahmoud Abbas. They still talked about that two-state solution, but what Mr. Modi didn't mention was recognizing East Jerusalem as the capital of the Palestinian territory, which all the other previous prime ministers had said. That at this point people realize that India is slowly moving away from Palestine and toward Israel, and this whole vote against the US is merely lip service and doesn't really represent policy for India. And I think Israel realizes that, and I think both countries are mature enough to not let this be a stumbling block and actually move forward from this. Both countries realize that their relationship is on the fast track and their relationship is only going to get stronger in the future. India has been constantly tilting more and more towards Israel, and they've been pushing more and more towards better relationship with Israel, and Israel knows fully well what having a strong ally like India in the Middle East and in the Asia region can mean for Israel as well. So even though I was pretty critical of the move when India voted against the US in that resolution, but I really do not think it's going to be a stumbling block, and I do believe that this relationship is going to get stronger. And I'm really looking forward to this visit by PM Netanyahu, and I would like to, as an Indian, welcome him to India, and I hope he has a very productive time in India, and I'm excited to see how this trip turns out. All right, and that's today's episode. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as well. What do you expect to see out of this trip from PM Netanyahu to India? I'd love to hear your opinions. What do you think will be the outcome of this trip? I'd love to hear your opinions, so please get involved in the comment sections below. All right, again, thank you very much for watching today's show. If you are enjoying the show, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like the episode, make sure to share the show on social media, and make sure to subscribe to the show's channel. I will see you with another episode again on Wednesday, and until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you soon.